And now I'm recording and let me share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, now you can see my screen. Okay,
Yes.
so let's see. Okay, so today we start to discuss about soil classification. After the discussion about the diagnostic horizons, we start to see how to classify soils. And according to the World Reference Base for Soil Resources, we have two levels for soil classification. The World Reference Base for Soil Resources is a specific system for soil classification. It could be used for worldwide soils, so we can use in Brazil, Australia, Europe, Africa, Americas, or any country that you can imagine. It's a very good soil classification system because it's quite easy to use it. Like we have only two levels. The first level is about the reference soil groups, and these reference soil groups, they are related to the diagnostic horizons that we saw in the last classes. So we have 32 reference soil groups, and each one have specifically diagnostic horizons, diagnostic properties, diagnostic materials that we can also only call diagnostic. And each one have this specific characteristics that we can see in the field. That's quite important. We always do the soil classification in the field. Several soil analyses on the lab help us to verify if we classify in a very good or good way, if the classification is right, but we should always do the soil classification in the field. We shouldn't just collect the samples and okay, let us classify in the lab because I will have all the data there. No, you should use the information that you have in the field. And why we do this thing is just to make this harder? No, it's because you need the information in the field to classify soil. You need to understand how the soil is used, the landscape, the parent material, if you can find some kind of rock there, which rock can you find there, which kind of vegetation, animals, bioturbation of soil. You really need to pay attention for all this information that we can describe in the field to classify soil. So we really need to make a very good soil description in the field so we can classify soil in the field. Maybe sometime if I don't have a lot of experience, I can make a soil classification that's not so good, maybe something wrong in this topic, another topic, but we can change, we can correct it after the lab analysis, not a real problem. So, okay, JJ, I think in the field that this soil is euteric, has a high base saturation, but actually it is district. The base saturation is very low. Okay, no problem. You just need to correct it. And in the next time that we classify soil, please pay more attention about that. Pay more attention about which species are there, which kind of use is there, which kind of rocks can we found there, and maybe you can improve your ability to classify soil. Okay, so it's not a problem to make a wrong soil classification in the field since you check if all the information is correct after you receive the lab analysis. Okay. And of course, we need to pay a very good attention to make a better soil description every time. So, okay, today I need to improve my ability to classify the voids, and the next soil description that I can done, I will pay more attention and describe better the voids and try to make some correlations between the type of voids and the sand content or the coarse materials content or the clay content in the soil in that horizon. Okay, so we always try to make a very good site description to identify the diagnostic horizons, and after that we can classify the soil, identify which reference soil group can we found in that site. And the second level is related to principal and supplementary qualifiers. This second level are additional information that we include to make a better description about the soil. Like we can have feral soils, and feral soils is one of these 32 reference soil groups, but feral soils, they can be very different. We can have euteric, district, rhodic, chromic, and several other properties. And these properties that's quite related to the influence of the soil formation factors that express how this soil works, how is the potential and the fragilities of this soil. They are this second level. They are in the principal and supplementary qualifiers. Okay, so it's a very easy way to classify soil, and we can add, we can increment with a lot of information about this soil in the even in the field. And to describe this first level, the 32 reference soil groups, we have some information that we can easily found for each of these reference soil groups. So the first one is that those soils that have a thick organic layer or horizon, that have a O or H horizon, a thick O or H horizon, a thick organic horizon, they are classified as hystosols. So these hystosols are those soils that present a thick organic layer or horizon. They are those organic soils which the physical, chemical, and morphological properties are quite related to the organic matter. So the organic matter, the organic layer, or this organic horizon influence and determines how is the chemical, physical, and morphological properties of the soil. They are the hystosols. Okay. And we also have soils that did not present a thick organic layer or a thick organic horizon. And if the soils that present a shallow organic layer or even did not present organic layer and present a significant human influence, they could be two reference soil groups. They could be two types. Okay, the soils that present a significant human influence, if they are related to a long and intensive agriculture use, if they are related to ancient land use, they are related to ancient communities, human communities, they are classified as anthrosols. These anthrosols are related to soils that was used in the past by human communities. Okay, they did not present an organic thick layer, but they are related to our intensive agriculture used by ancient communities, ancient human communities. Okay? And if the soils that did not present a thick organic layer and they are related to a significant human influence, if they present a significant amount or artifacts, if they are related to a modern human influence, they are related to urban sites, they are called as technosols. So mining areas, urban soils, soils that are influenced by modern communities, modern human societies, they are called technosols. Even if they are related to agriculture use, but agriculture, a modern agriculture use. So, okay, we have the addition of fertilizers and limestone, but this is made by machines. So they is a typically modern human use. They are called technosols. Or if we prepare something to build a house or to build a building or to build a road, this kind of soils that are significantly affected by humans, they are called technosols. Okay, so we have these two options, anthrosols and technosols, that express our huge human influence in the soil formation. But they are different because the anthrosols, they are related to ancient soils, ancient human communities, and the technosols, they are related to modern areas, the modern regions, the modern soils. Okay. We also have some soils that did not present a thick organic layer, and they are not influenced by human activity, not influenced by a significant or huge human influence, but present some kind of limitation to root growth. So if they present something that could limit the growing of vegetables or trees, they are in this third group. And those soils that are affected by permafrost, if they are in the all year or even at least two consecutive years, they are under 0 Celsius degree. If they are in very low temperatures and they possess and they present the permafrost, a layer that possess temperatures below 0 Celsius degree, they are called cryosols. So the cryosols are those soils that the growing of roots, the growing of forests, or even a savanna, it's limited by the temperature. The low temperature create a frozen layer, and this frozen layer affect the ca- ca- affect the growing of the vegetation, affect how soil can support complex life, a complex ecosystem. Okay, so those soils that are affected by very low temperatures or temperatures below 0 Celsius degree, they are called cryosols. Okay, and remember, they should not present a thick organic layer or horizon, and they should not present a significant human influence. If they have one of these properties, they are not cryosols, they are histosols or anthrosols or technosols. Okay, so even if I have a soil that present very low temperatures for all the year or at least 2 consecutive years, but they present a thick organic layer. They are not cryptosols, they are hystosols, because we have a precedence here. So the hystosols is the first level that you need to check if in the site, if the in the field, that soil can be classified as a hystosol. If they have if that soil has a thick organic layer, is a hystosol, and doesn't matter anymore any kind of other properties. Okay, it's a hystosol. So you need to follow these numbers to identify which reference soil group we are talking about in the site, in the field. Okay? If you have a specific limitation to root grow, specific limitation to support any kind of complex ecosystem or a complex vegetation, but it's because the soil is too thin or it possesses a very high coarse fragments content, they are called leptosols. So the leptosols are those soils that can't support complex life because they are too thin to that, and they did not can host a lot of water, or they can host a lot of nutrients, and they can't host tall trees or even a building, because you can't use that thin soil. Okay, so they are those soils that are not deep, they are very thin and too thin to support a complex ecosystem. Okay, we also have some soils that possess a limitation to root growing, but it's not because the temperature, it's not because it's too thin, because it possesses a high content of exchangeable sodium. Exchangeable sodium is not good for the for the vegetation, because it's a nutrient, but in high contents, it start to dry the seeds, to dry the roots, and the vegetation couldn't grow in this area. So sites which you possess a high content of sodium, we also have any kind of limitation, and because of that, we call these soils as solonets. So the solonets are those soils that have a specific huge problem with a high content of exchangeable sodium. Okay. We also have other soils, another reference soil group that could possess a limitation to root grow, because the soils has expensive clays, and these clays could suffer shrinking and swelling, and this can break some roots, also can affect the migration of water, or even the availability of water for the vegetation. And these soils, they are called vertisols. So the vertisols are those soils that possess a limitation to support a complex ecosystem, a complex life, because they possess a high content of clay, and these clays are high activity clays. And we also can find some soils that possess a limitation to root growing, and it's because a chemical process that is the high concentration of salts. And these salts, they increase the electronic conductivity, and it does not help the vegetation grow. Generally, the vegetation can't grow in these areas very easily, because the salts, they did not help the water migration from the soil to the roots, so vegetation start to suffer with wilting point, even if the soil has a lot of water, because the salts, they can't help this migration of water from soil to the roots. And these soils are called solo checks. So these soil chunks, they are related to soils that influenced by salts, soluble salts. Okay. We also have some soils that can be grouped in a fourth group, that are soils that possess a specific iron and aluminum chemistry. The first one is those soils that are groundwater affected, or are underwater, or even are in tidal sites, in tidal areas. So those soils that are influenced by the oscillation of water from the water table, or water from the sea, influence a lot the formation of these soils. And because of that, these soils did not present iron 3, just iron 2. So it's a particular iron chemistry, and because of that, we individualize them in a specific reference soil group that's called clay soils. So the clay soils are those soils that are influenced by the oscillation of the water table and tidal water. We also have some soils that could be related to presence of olefins and or aluminum humus complexes. So aluminum and soil organic matter complexes, organic metal complexes. Okay. These materials, they are quite related to uh, low density minerals that possess a low crystallinity and a lot of water and aluminum and soil organic matter inside the structure of the soil. So they are very particular soils, and they are related in general, they are related to volcanic, recent or modern volcanic areas. So we only can find this kind of minerals, the olefins, in areas that suffer modern or recent igneous activities, like Japan, Argentina, Chile, and something like that. These soils, they are called endosols. Then this word is related to a specific soil that first of all was described in Japan. So the endic soils, the endosoils, are those soils that we can find in Japan. It's not so easy to identify or to find them in tropics, especially in wet tropics, but in some specific sites that was suffer volcanic activity recently, we usually can find some of these specific materials. We also have those soils that suffer through time the migration of soil organic matter and or iron and aluminum oxides from the surface to the subsurface horizon, and those soils present an accumulation of this soil organic matter and or oxides in the subsurface, and those horizon the soils are classified as podzols. So the podzols are soils that concentrates or that accumulates organic matter and or oxides, ammonium and iron oxides in the subsurface. Okay. We also have some specific soils that present a high concentration of iron as anodyles or concretions. So they present a high concentration of iron, but this iron, it's always forming some specific red or dark red dots or spots that are called nodules or concretions. And those soils, they indicate that in the past, that site was underwater or was affected by the water table. And today, this water condition, this anaerobic condition, is not more capable to be seen because the water table migrates or downwards. And now we have only an oxidation condition with a lot of oxygen and iron 3. And those soils that indicate that in the past that site suffered with water table, but today we can find unspecific uh, glake property or stagnant property. They are called plantosols. So the plantosols are those soils that possess nodules and or concretions. We also have some soils that possess uh, abrupt textural difference. So they change its texture very, very fast. So they possess a sandy A horizon or a sandy E horizon and a clay B horizon. And the variation of clay content is very high and in a very thin section. In very few centimeters, we have a very high variation of clay content. For example, I can see a horizon with less than 10% of clay content, and under there, we can find a B horizon with more than 50% of clay content. So the increase of clay content is very high. And if this increase of clay content is a very thin section, the variation of texture induces the stagnation of water. So you can find stagnant water because the variation of texture induces a variation of porosity, and this variation of quantity of voids and connectivity of the voids change how water can migrate from the voids, from the surface to the subsurface. So we create a soil that possess stagnant water, but this layer, it's formed, it's influenced by a abrupt textural difference, by a higher, huge difference of clay content between the surface and subsurface soil horizons. These soils, they are called planosols. So the planosols are related those soils that possess difficult to migration of water, and this difficulty is related to a variation of clay content. We also can find some soils that are related to a difficulty to migration of water, but it's not because variation of clay content. It's just the nature of that soil. They generally are related to a rock layer or a sea horizon or a sea layer that possess a very low porosity. And because of that, the water start to stagnate in the surface or even in a subsurface horizon, and we start to create some reduximorphic features in the soils. Oh, just a moment, someone's asking to enter. Okay. So in this case that we have something that avoid or reduce the migration of water from the surface to the subsurface horizons, and is not a huge or high variation of clay content, they are called stagnosols. So the stagnant soils are those soils that have stagnant water, and the stagnant water is related to a low void connectivity or a low void quantity in the soil. Okay. It's quite important to understand that clay soils and stagnant soils, they are very different. The clay soils, they possess a gray color, and they are formed by the oscillation of the water table level. Stagnant soils are not related to water table migration. It's because the rainwater, the water that comes from the rain, can't migrate from the soil easily. And because of that, this soil start to create some specific reduximorphic features, because water can't migrate from the soil through the soil from the surface to the subsurface easily. Okay, just a moment. We also can found some soils that possess a high content of iron, shiny surfaces, low activity clays, and it is strongly structured, and those soils are the needy soils. So the needy soils are those soils that possess a high quantity, a high content of iron oxides, but at the same time we can see some shiny surfaces, and these shiny surfaces are related to migration of clay from the surface to the subsurface and create a specific feature that we only can see in materials in soils that are formed from mafic parent materials. We have a low quantity, a low content of sand, and a high quantity of clay that create a strongly structured horizon and create these shine surfaces. And we also can found those soils that are related to a deep wafering residues, a deep wafering process. So soils that are rich in iron oxides, aluminum oxides, they are rich in kaolinite, halloysite, and other minerals that express a deep, intense, and profound weathering. They are called ferrosols. They are the typical soil that's formed that can be found in wet tropical areas. So the ferrosols are those soils that possess low activity clays, low cationic exchange capacity, and uh, low activity, low cationic exchange capacity, and a low increase of clay with depth. They are related to soils that was intensively bioturbated by animals, so the texture of all the soil is basically the same. From the top to the subsurface, they possess a very similar clay content because the bioturbation, because the animals and its mix of materials. Okay. We also can find some soils that are related to a mineral topsoil, a mineral surface horizon. So it it is a surface horizon that's not organic. So the soil organic carbon, so or soil organic carbon content, it's lower than 20%, but they possess a high content, or they are very dark, or they present a dark color. These soils, they are four type different. They could be classified as four type different. We have those soils that possess a high soil organic matter or soil organic carbon content in the surface, and they present secondary carbonates. Okay, those soils are called chernozans, are those soils that are related to limestone weathering, and limestone weathering in environments that favor the production of soil organic matter. So they possess a temperate or even tropical climate and help the increase of soil organic carbon, and consequently, the topsoil is dark, possess a dark color, and possess secondary carbonates because these materials, they are precipitated from the weathering of limestone. We also have some soils that possess a lower soil organic carbon content in comparison with chernozans, and they also possess secondary carbonates. So they are the castenozans, and these castenozans, they are related to limestone and these calcium-rich parent materials, but generally the limestone, and they are related to areas that the soil organic matter production, the soil organic carbon production is not so high. So you possess dark colors, but not so dark. You possess a high soil organic matter content, but it's not so high, it's not too high to be classified as a chernozans. Okay. We also have the phyoxanes. These phyoxanes, they are related to dark topsoil, low to medium soil organic matter content, and they did not present secondary carbonates. They are related to other parent materials. They are related to mafic parent materials. For example, the phaseosanes, they are related for basalt and other materials that could favor the formation of a dark topsoil, but a dark topsoil without secondary carbonates, because these secondary carbonates only are formed in soils that possess primary carbonates, that possess limestone and calcite. And of course, these phaseosanes, they are related to a high basis saturation. So the phaseosanes and the umbrasols, they are very similar because umbrasols also possess dark topsoil. Also, they did not possess a secondary carbonates. They either possess a secondary carbonates, but the umbrasols possess a low base saturation. So the umbrasols, they possess a lot of hydrogen in the cationic exchange capacity, but they possess a low content of calcium and carbonate. It's the opposite of phaseosanes, because the phaseosanes, they possess a high base saturation. So they need to possess a high content of exchangeable calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Beside the soils, we also have some soils that register the accumulation of non-saline substances, so non-materials that are from a directly influence of tidal area, tidal water, okay? And those soils are the durisols. The durisols are soils that possess cementation, and these soils are related to cementation by secondary silica. So, because of the weathering, in some dry areas, we can find a high pH, and this high pH intends the weathering of some primary minerals and some silicates, and the silicates could migrate from the surface to the subsurface horizon, and in the subsurface could cement a horizon and create a cemented horizon or a cemented layer. And these kinds of soils, we call them durisols. So the durisols are those soils that possess cemented or accumulated horizon by secondary silica. Okay. We also can find some soils that possess secondary gypsum, and the gypsum is a calcium sulfate. So if we can find formation of calcium sulfate in the soil, secondary calcium sulfate in the soil, we call the soil as a gypsy soil. So the gypsy soil is related to gypsum, and gypsum is a calcium sulfate. So soils that possess a high calcium sulfate content, they are gypsy soils. We also can find some soils that possess a high content of secondary carbonates, especially calcium carbonates. So those soils that possess a high secondary carbonates content, they are called calci soils, calci, calcium carbonate soils. We also have some soils that possess as a specific property a clay enriched subsoil that possess a high or a very high clay content, or even very higher than the surface or the overlaying horizons. Okay, and those are this seventh group. If we have a soil that possesses a higher clay content in the subsoil horizon in comparison in the subsurface horizon in comparison with the surface horizon, and we can see some plugs, some interference of coarse and fine horizons. If we can find an interdigitation of coarse material and fine material, we call the soils as ready soils. So the ready soils, they are those soils that we can find some wavy or even irregular transitional between horizons, and this irregular or wavy transitional transition between the horizons, they mark variation of coarse and fine materials, coarse and fine horizons. Okay? If we did not have this infraregioning of horizons, of different texture horizons, and we only have low activity clays with low base saturation, we call these soils as acrosols. And here we just need to pay attention that we are talking about physical chemical soil properties and chemical soil properties. Low activity or high activity, they are related to physical chemical soil properties, and we can only calculate it in the field or in the lab, I'm sorry, after the receiving the lab analysis, but we can imagine how is the activity of those soils, because we can check how and how many cracks we can see in that horizon. If we have a high number of horizons, a low number of horizons, or cracks, I'm sorry, a high number of cracks or a low number of cracks. If those cracks, they are high, they are huge, they are large, or they are very thin, or we don't even can see these cracks. They are related to low activity clays. Okay, if the stick of the soil of the horizon it's very low, or even we have a non-stick and non-plastic horizon, maybe the clays are low activity clays. Okay, so we have some information in the field that help us a lot to identify which activity those clays have, if they are low or high activity clays. In the base saturation, we can also measure only in the lab, but we can infer some information from the landscape, from the land use, from the species that we can found in that area, because we have a lot of species, vegetation species that only grow in euteric soils. And we have other species, vegetation species that only can grow in the strophic soils, only can grow in soils that possess a very or a high pour of nutrients. In these cases, we can found and saw in the field some information that help us to understand, okay, this is a site that possesses a low base saturation, or no, this is a site that we have a high base saturation. Okay, if we have low activity clays and low base saturation, we call the soils as acrisols, soils that possess an acric horizon, and this acric horizon is related to soils that possess a low activity clays and an increase of clay content in the subsurface horizon. We also can see some soils that have a low activity clay, but they present a high base saturation. It's because the weather is not so wet, so we don't have too much rain, and we can conserve, we can keep some of the nutrients, and because of that, we have a soil that possesses a high base saturation. In this case, we can find the lixic soils. The lixic soils are those soils that possess a low activity clays but a high base saturation. Okay. We also can see some soils that possess a high activity, or they possess high activity clays, but they possess a low base saturation. So some soils that possess a high content of aluminum can create some vermiculite with hydroxy between layers, and create some soils that have a high activity clay, but they also process a low base saturation because the aluminum content is very high. The aluminum content helps the stabilization of some high activity minerals, and it's because we can found some high activity clays with a low base saturation. Those soils that have a high activity clay and a low base saturation at the same time, they are classified as alloy soils. So the alloy soils are those soils that can suffer with shrinking and swelling according to the variation of temperature, of moisture, but they possess a low base saturation because the aluminum content is too high to keep some calcium, potassium, or magnesium, or other nutrients. Okay. And we also can see some soils that possess a high activity clays, and at the same time, they present a high base saturation. They are loove soils, and they are typically from semi-arid regions. So semi-arid regions, they host soils that are not so weathered, they are not so deeply weathered or leached. So we can found in these cases some soils with high activity clays and at the same time a high base saturation. Okay, those soils are called loove soils. So the loove soils are those soils that possess an increase of clay content in the subsurface, and at the same time they possess a high activity clay, and at the same time they possess a high base saturation. We need to check this free information to classify a hydrosol, an increase of clay content, um, high activity clays, and 30 option a high base saturation. Okay. We also can find some incipient development soils, those soils that did not present very easily horizons and layers. So we can find some hard topics to discuss and to describe. It's not so easy to describe the soils because they possess an incipient development, and this incipient development represents or express much of the parent material. So those incipient development soils, they are related to soils that present hugely physical, chemical, and morphological soil properties that are related to parent material. Okay, those soils that are quite related to parent material are moderately developed soils, those soils that already possess a B diagnostic horizon, and because of that, they are not too thin, they are not too thick, they are not so wafer, but they are not too young. So we can find a soil that's changing. It's because the name of Canby soils, because Canby soils means soils that cambio, soils that can change from the Spanish cambio. It's like change. So they are soils that are changing from a very, very incipient soils to a modern soils or strongly developed horizon. We also can find some soils that are formed by sedimentation of alluvial and fluvial sediments. Those soils are called fluvisols. Those fluvisols are formed in terraces, marine terraces, alluvial terraces, and foot slopes and lowlands that could receive very easily sediments, and those sediments, they are stratified in specific layers, so I can easily read the layers in the field. I can easily see the layers in the field because they are too incipient developed. So we can easily see those materials and how they represent the parent material. We also can find some soils that can be very deep, but at the same time, they did not present any kind of structure and they possess a sandy texture. In this way, we can see any kind of structure. The material is poorly weathered, but we only can find sand in these materials, like soils in beaches and soils very close to beaches. They are arenosols. The arenosols, they are related to soils that possess a sandy texture. So a very, very high content of sand, and the clay content and the silt content, it's too low to help to create specific soil properties. And so this soil, it's very similar to the parent material. And for last, for not at least, we have some soils that did not present a significant profile development. So they are very general and related soils that we can see a specific soil process formation there. We can see any kind of specific structure or diagnostic material that can help us to classify soil. They are classified as regosols. So regosols, they are classified if you can identify those soil that was described in the field as any of these 31 reference soil groups. So I need to check each one, and if I cannot put insert, or if any of them fit this soil, it comes from a regosol, a soil that did not present a specific soil property. Okay, so it's a lot of information. Oh, okay, someone raised their hand. Just a moment. Okay, let's see. How do we find the soils today since the Earth is said to have formed 4.5 billions of years ago? Kenneth, we hardly can find soils formed in this age, with this age. They generally have more recent age. They generally are related to Cenozoic age, or we can find some soils. I think that oldest modern soil that we can find is something like 30,000 of years, the modern soils, okay? But if you look very, very careful in some specific areas, you can find paleosols. You can find soils that are very old, and some of these paleosols, some of them, of these very old soils, they have more than millions of years, and some of them very, very rare, very, very rare. They have 1 or 2 billions of years. It's because you need to understand that before 2 billions of years, the atmosphere is very different from today, and the chemical conditions, they are very different. So soils could exist, but they are very different. They are very strange soils if we try to compare with the soils that are formed today. And of course, with so much time, they could be eroded through the time. So even if the soil, this losing material, was formed at something like 1 billion of years ago or 2 billions of years ago, they could be eroded, and now we can found that. So we expect that we have a very old soils, but it's not so easy to found then, because they generally was eroded by the action of wind, of water, or glaciers. Okay. And just to finish this topic, uh, even these paleosols, even those soils that was formed in the past, we also can classify them as these reference soil groups. So even an ancient soil could be classified as a ferrosol, or as an acrosol, or as a lexic soil, or any kind of soil group. Okay. Okay, it's clear. Very good. Let's come back and see. So we saw all the 32 reference soil groups that are related to first level, and now we need to talk about the second level. As I said, the second level is composed by two kind of qualifiers, the principal and the supplementary qualifiers. The principal qualifiers, they are here, and they are listed, they are described, they are presented in the order of importance. So those qualifiers that influence the soil formation and how the soil can be used, they are in the top of the list. And those topics that are not so important, these qualifiers that are not so important, they are in the bottom positions of the list. Okay. The principal qualifiers, they are inserted, they are written before the name of the reference soil group. So for example, if I classify a soil as a solonets, after to identify the reference soil group after the first level, I need to check which principal qualifiers can be identified for this specific soil profile that I described in the field. So, for example, I classify a soil as a solonets, and I identified that this soil also possess gleic properties, so it also possess gray colors and possess a gypsic property qualifier, or because possess a gypsic horizon. How could I classify the soil? I should insert these principal qualifiers without comma, and after that, I insert the name of the reference soil group. So let's check. In this case, just add a box here. Okay, here. So let's see, I found a soil in the field, and I know that's a solonets, and I identify clay properties, and I identify gypsic horizon. So in this case, I will insert this information. Clayic and gypsic solonets without any kind of common. So the principal qualifiers, they comes before the name of the reference soil group. And the supplementary qualifiers, they are after the name of the reference soil group, and they should be inserted with common, and they should insert inside branch. So let's see, does clayite gypsic solonets present a clay texture and present ochric horizon and present a raptic property? I will insert in this case, oh, just a moment, sorry. I need to insert a branch, so open the branch, and I will insert clayite, common, ochric, common, and rapid, and I will close the branch. So the name of the soil is this. It is a clayite gypsic solonets clay ochric raptic. So the classification of the soil, the specific example, we always need to follow these criteria. First of all, we need to identify the reference soil group. We need to identify the first level. And after the first level, we need to identify which principal qualifiers could we see in the soil profile. We insert all the principal qualifiers that we can find, and we need to follow this list. So I shouldn't use nudimetric before molic or clayite, but I can use nudimetric before albic or ablic, okay? And when we are writing the principal qualifiers, we did not use brains or comma, but we insert these names, this information before the name of soil group. After the reference soil group, we open the branch and insert information between comma and between the branch following this criteria again, but in this case, the supplementary qualifiers, they are alphabetic order. They did not follow an order according to importance, but they only follow an alphabetic order. So just need to check the alphabetic order and insert the information here using comma. So for this specific case, we finish the classification of soil. We insert the principal qualifiers, the supplementary qualifiers, and the name of the reference soil group. Okay? So it's not hard to understand. It's not hard to comprehend which information is inside this name, because I can understand that it's a solonets, so it's a soil that possesses a high content of sodium in the surface, and this soil possesses clayic properties, possess a gray color, and also possess concentration of soluble salts like gypsum, and it possesses a clay texture, and it also possesses an ochric horizon, and it also possesses raptic properties. So this name tell us a lot about the soil formation, about all information that we can describe, classify in the soil. Okay, so the name of the soil classification help us a lot to understand how we describe it and how fragile or which land use can be done in this soil. Okay, everyone could understand how could we include these names in the order and where we should include the principal qualifiers and the supplementary qualifiers.
Yes, it's clear, JJ.
Very good, very good. It's very easy. It's not a huge problem to do that. So we just need to follow this information, and the information is inside the word reference soil group. So you just need to follow this table and we can classify. Only the only thing that you really have to do is to identify the reference soil group first of all. If we identify the reference soil group, after that it's just easy. You just need to check all this information here. Okay,
Okay.
very good. So let's start to talk about one of the reference soil group, the isosols, the first reference soil group that we always need to check. So if you are in the field and you need to classify soil, the first reference soil group that you should keep in mind is isosols. Is this soil in front of mine? Is it a isosol? Is the first question that you need to bring in your mind. And to check if that soil is a isosol, you just need to check all this information here. So first of all, this soil possesses organic material that starts up to 40 centimeters from the soil surface. So for example, in this picture, this is the surface, and I should find up to the 40 centimeters of depth, I should find organic material. Okay, if the soil have 100 of 100 of centimeters, okay, and this organic material should possess at least 40 centimeters or more of thickness. If this organic material is composed by moss fibers, or if I have at least 6 centimeters of this organic material. So I should identify a horizon or layer that possess at least 40 centimeters if this organic horizon is essentially composed by moss fibers, or at least 60 centimeters, or if the organic horizon, the organic layer starts at the soil surface, it should possess at least 10 centimeters if this organic horizon directly overlie ice, rock, or technical hard material, material that was created by humans. So if I found a soil profile that in the surface I can find organic material, this organic material should have at least 10 centimeters of thickness if this horizon is overlying ice, rock, or technical hard material. Okay, so it's a specific case. If I found this material in the surface, but I can find coarse fragments that together with the overlying organic material starts at the soil surface and have a thickness of 10 centimeters, and this material with organic material and coarse fragment has at least 10 centimeters, and overlying continuous rock or technical hard material, it also is a histosol. Or if I can find an organic horizon in the surface, and this organic horizon have has at least 40 centimeters. In this case, I also have a histosol. So as you can see, the histosols, they can present very different dispositions and thickness of this organic material. But I should know that to create a histosol, to identify a histosol, I really have to identify organic layers, organic materials. And in this case, these materials should possess a high thickness, okay? And the value of the thickness are here. You did not need to remember all these details, are just details. You just need to remember that, okay, to identify a histosol, I really need a thick organic layer or a thick organic horizon. So in the field, if I found a thick organic horizon, I need to check how much or how many centimeters this horizon should have to identify a histosol. Okay, also in this case, for example, I can easily see that at least 60 centimeters from the surface of this soil profile are organic horizons, are organic materials. They possess at least 20% of our soil organic carbon. So the soil organic carbon, it's too high, it's very high, and because of that, we have or we can identify organic materials, and because of that, we can also identify isosols. So the isosols are those horizons and layers that are organic and they are very thick. So even we found here below this organic horizons, we can find some mineral horizons like an A or B or C horizon, doesn't matter, because I found in the surface or very close to surface a thick organic horizon. Okay, this is other topic, the other picture, I'm sorry, about the histosol. In this case, we can easily see the organic matter accumulation at least for this depth, something like 80 centimeters or less than that, maybe 60 or even 7 centimeters of depth, but I can see at least 60 centimeters or 7 centimeters of organic materials that was deposited, that they are accumulated here. So this is a histosol. We also can find some anthrosols. And the anthrosols are those soils that are formed by ancient human communities. So those ancient human communities that create soil, that produce soil. And to identify an anthrosol, I need to identify one of these diagnostic horizons. So I need to identify a hortic horizon or a hygric horizon or pelagic horizon or pteric horizon, and one of them should possess at least 50 centimeters of thickness. If they have less than this, it's not an anthrosol, it's another thing, another soil, but it's not an anthrosol. I will classify as other soil group, like, okay, this is a histosol or a ferrosol or other thing that possess a hortic horizon or pteric horizon, but this pteric horizon did not possess the minimum thickness to identify an anthrosol. This is very important to you to understand that one thing is the diagnostic horizon, one thing is the diagnostic property, and the reference soil group it's other thing. We can't classify an anthrosol only because those soils has a pteric horizon. No, the pteric horizon should possess at least 50 centimeters of thickness. If it possesses less than that, it's other reference soil group. So watch out. We can't classify soil only identifying the diagnostic horizon. Okay, it's a ferralic horizon, so it's a ferrosol. No, calm down. How thick this ferralic horizon, and which horizons can be found here? It follow all the criterias to identify a ferralic sol, a ferrosol, or anthrosol. So okay, if follow all the criterias, I can classify the soil. So if I found one of these four horizons with at least 15 centimeters, 50 centimeters, I'm sorry, it is an anthrosol. Or if I found an anthratic horizon and an underlying hydratic horizon with a summit thickness equal or higher than 50 centimeters. So again, it should possess at least 50 centimeters with this anthratic and underlying hydratic horizon. Or if I found a pteric horizon like this one with at least 50 centimeters of thickness within 100 of centimeters in the soil surface. Okay, so as in this example, this is an anthrosol because we have a pteric horizon, that's this shale rich horizons. This is a pteric horizon, okay, and it has much more than only 50 centimeters. So this is an anthrosol, very easy to identify. This is other anthrosol because in this case, I have a pteric horizon with something like six to, no. This type, it's very hard to read it. Yes, yes. 20, okay. It's 19, okay. So I have a very thick pteric horizon where I can find this ceramic, this artifacts, and because of that, this is anthrosol too. And we have those soils that was created by human society, by human communities, but they are formed by modern soil societies. They are formed by humans, by modern humans, and because of that, they are called technosols. The technosols are those soils that have one of these options, one or two, that is have at least 20% of volume of artifacts like materials produced by men, like stones, like concrete, like rubber, okay, inside the soil in the upper of this 100 centimeters from the soil surface, okay, or if I have a limiting layer in this shallow thickness, I should found at least 20% of artifacts of materials created by man. This option or this option, I can found a layer with 10 centimeters or more than of thickness and which start at up at 15 centimeters from the soil surface, and this layer possess at least 80% or more of artifacts. So even I found a layer that it's not too thick, but have at least 80% of artifacts. So it's a very high volume. Even it is not so thick, it's a technosol. Okay. And one of these options, and I did not have a layer that contained artifacts that qualifiers this horizon as an Nargic horizon, Duric horizon, Ferhalic horizon, Phrygic horizon, Hydratic horizon, Natric horizon, Natic horizon, Petrocalcic horizon, Petroduric horizon, Petrogypsic horizon, Petroplantic horizon, Pisoplanic horizon, Plantic horizon, Spodic or Vertic horizon. None of them starting up to 100 of centimeters from the soil surface. Okay, so to identify a neutral soil, I should not identify any of these horizons. Either of these horizons I can found in a technosol. It's only a huge influence of human activity. And they did not have a limiting layer that starts up to 10 centimeters from the soil surface because it's not a technosoil, it's other soil that we see the name of that, okay? It's a very, very thin soil that are the leptosols. Or the technosols also have a continuous and very slowly permeable to impermeable constructed geomembrane and of any thickness or technical hard that starts up to 100 centimeters from the soil surface. So I can see a technosol in an area that we have a very slowly migration of water because action of men, okay, a constructed membrane, or even the introduction of technical hard that are artifacts created by men inside into 100 of centimeters from the soil surface. So the technosols are those soils that was created by urban societies, modern societies, but they also have several criteria and to identify as an anthrosol at least one of these topics should be followed, and all the criteria should be followed to identify a technosol. Okay? So in this class, we have a huge, fast brief about all the 32 reference soil groups. And now we start to highlight each one. We start with hysosols, those soils that possess a thick organic layer or organic horizon. We also talk about the anthrosols, those soils that are formed by ancient human societies. And we also talk about the technosols, those soils that are formed by modern societies. In the next week, we start to discuss about the other references soil groups, okay? Because in this Wednesday, I will share with you one exam, the first exam. The first exam, it's about the soil description and some of the diagnostic horizons, especially about the soil description, but some of these diagnostic horizons. I will share all the information that I will need that you know up to our exercise or the first exam, okay? And you all will have 6 hours to finish the exam. So I will share with you the exam in the internet, in the web, and you have 6 hours to finish the exam. I will start the exam before the timing of the class because I know that if you start only at 7 p.m., you can't work all this time in the exam. So I will share the exam in the morning, and you can use the morning, afternoon, or the night to do your exam. Okay, so after you start the exam, you have 6 hours to answer the exam. Okay, but I will share all this information with you all so you can know that. Someone asked me to share my PowerPoint slides. I can share this material too, but again, you should remember that all the material, all the references, they are shared since the beginning. They have been shared since the beginning of our class. So you can find all the materials that you need to read, and I share some exercises so you can use again those exercises to check if it's something that's getting wrong or okay, I understood everything, so we can do the exam in a very good mood. Okay? Any question?
Okay, okay, JJ.
Okay, okay. So I will share with you this information about exam the next Wednesday. And please, if you have any doubt about the any topic, just let me know. Just send me a message, send me an email, and I will try to help you. Maybe we can chat specifically about this, or only we can exchange some messages, but it's very important that you don't have any kind of doubt about the topics. Okay?
Okay. So
Okay.
we are
Oh,
going to write the exam on Wednesday.
yes, yes. In the next Wednesday. On December, let me see, December 7th. Kenneth, you are
Okay.
asking 24 hours. Yes, yes, because internet issues. Yes, maybe, maybe. Okay, no problem. No problem. Maybe 24 hours, it's better. It's not a problem because I understand that this exam, it's not to, how can I say that? It's not to pay you nervous. You don't need to get nervous with that. You just need to write what you learned, and it's a very good opportunity to understand what we should fix and what we should study more, and the things that, okay, this topic is right, it's very good, and this topic maybe we need to put more effort to improve our knowledge about that. Okay, but just this. Okay, so
Mm.
I will share with you all this information, 24 hours to answer this. I will share the asking, and you need to answer each ask like in this exercise that I share with you. I made this, I put some data, morphological data, and I will try to bring some pictures, and with the pictures and morphological, physical, and chemical data, you need to understand which date. Next Wednesday, December 7th. December 7th, the next Wednesday. Okay? Okay?
Okay, okay, JJ. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So thank you very much. I see you, and yes, yes, yes. We are in the December 5th. Yes, yes, and it's this week. I know that's very close, but if you prefer, I can bring this exam to Friday, but I can't bring to the next week. If you are very hurry, if you think that's very hurry, maybe I can bring this in on Friday. Friday could be better to you.
Yes, please.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Okay, okay. So I will share, and you have 24 hours to do the exam, and I will share all the questions in the Friday, and you need to answer these questions at the end of the Friday. Okay? Okay, so
Okay.
please, again, if you have any question about or any topic, just let me know. Okay?
Okay,
So
JJ.
see you guys, and at see you on the Friday. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Oh,
Friday, same
welcome.
time, or at least,
Ye-
or for the whole day.